Roman 10th English Sermon Manuscript. Today we will make an observation of Romans chapter 3 verses 27 to 31 NRSV. Let's read Romans chapter 3 verses 27 to 28. Then what becomes of boasting? It is excluded. By what law? By that of works? No, by the law of faith. For we hold that a person is justified by faith apart from works prescribed by the law. Hellenic word nomos was translated into English as law, but its literal meaning is principle. The only way to be justified in the sight of God is not by the principle of works, but faith. But Paul did not hurry to mention about what the principle of faith is. Let's read Romans chapter 3, verses 29 to 30. Or is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles also? Yes, of Gentiles also, since God is one. And he will justify the circumcised on the ground of faith and uncircumcised through that same faith. Paul explained about the faith on the ground of justification. The God will justify both the circumcised and the uncircumcised through faith, not through the fact of being circumcised or not, because there is only one God in this world. But when Paul was talking about God, that is around 2,000 years ago in Roman period. At the time, there were so many adjectives to be called gods or goddesses. Most of them imagined idol, except the real God. Now Paul insisted there was only one God, whether they approve or not, recognize or not. Therefore, the God of the Jews should be the God of Gentiles. What are gods which Gentiles worship and offer sacrifice? Let's read Leviticus chapter 19, verse 4. Do not turn to idols or make cast images for yourselves. I am the Lord your God. And 4th Chronicle chapter 16, verse 25 to 26. For great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. He is to be revered above all gods. For all the gods of peoples are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. All gods of Gentiles do not exist. Therefore, they need their idols to bow and worship too. The Jews don't need an idol because their God exists and created the world, including living things in it, and the universe. The God will justify both the Jews and the Gentiles through their faith only. It will be beneficial for us if we read in Greek words and translate them literally for Romans chapter 3 verses 30. Hos dikaios periton men ektisteos kai akrobustian dia tes pisteos. Dikaio is future active case of dikaio, to take a legal case, do justice. Pedimomen is accusative case of peditomen, circumcision. Acrobustian is accusative case of acrobustia, uncircumcision for skin. Ekpisteos is on the basis of faith, and diates pisteos is through the faith of Jesus Christ. Through above literal explanations, we can separate the faith to be justified in the sight of the God between the circumcised Jews and the uncircumcised Gentiles. Now, let's read Romans chapter 3, verse 26. It was to prove at the present time that he himself is righteous and that he justifies the one who has faith in Jesus, ek pistos Jesu, the one who has faith of Jesus. The Jews, circumcised ones, should have a faith of Jesus in order to be justified by the God. Whether the Jews or the Gentiles, the faith should be same, that is, the faith of Jesus. Only difference is for the circumcised being justified on the basis of the faith of Jesus, for the uncircumcised being justified through the faith of Jesus. The Jews had kept the faith in the God, which was inherited through their fathers from Abraham. Therefore, the Jews could be justified by the God if they put their faith upon the faith of Jesus. However, the Gentiles had not kept the faith in the God as the Jews. They could be justified by the God only through the faith of Jesus. The God decided his justification on human being by his faith only, but the Jews want the God to decide his justification on human being by his works, since the faith could not be measured publicly. Therefore, they need the oral Torah to guide their works, not to be indicated according to the Moses law. The Jews did not trust the God. Even in his most basic principle, decision, the human being cannot see the soul and the spirit, but the God is spirit. Paul told about the relationship between God and human being in Romans chapter 9, verses 19 to 21 as follows. You will say to me then, why then does he still find fault? For who can resist his will? But who indeed are you, a human being, to argue with God? Will what is molded say to the one who molds it, why have you made me like this? Has the potter no right over the clay to make out of the same lump one object for special use and another for ordinary use? The Jews probably forgot the fact that the God made them out of the ground of this earth, and they are dust only. Now let's read Romans chapter 3, verse 31. Do we then overthrow the law by this faith? By no means. On the contrary, we uphold the law. The Greek word which was translated as overthrow is katargomen. The active indirect case of katargeo, make powerless. And then let's read Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Do you think that I, Jesus Christ, have come to abolish the law or prophets? I have come not to abolish, but fulfill. The Greek word which was translated as abolish is katalusai, the aorist active case of kataluo, demolish or destroy. The Greek word which was translated as fulfill is plerosai, the aorist active case of pledo, to perform fully or fulfill. Let's read Romans chapter 8, verse 3 to 4. For God has done what the law, weakened by the flesh, could not do, by sending his Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and to deal with sin, he condemned the sin in the flesh, so that the just requirements of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. In order to make a law perfect, all the requirements of law should be fulfilled in us. When any requirements of the law is broken by force or human relationship, there is no law in such social classes, society, and or nation. When the Moses law was almost abolished by being replaced with oral Torah, which was primarily edited by Jewish rabbis BC 170 to AD 30, had been taught to the Jews. The object of this activity related to the oral Torah was the preservation, cultivation, and application to life of the law Torah in the form in which many generations of like-minded Jewish religious leaders had learned to understand the law. The Jews had kept the oral Torah instead of Moses' law. Traditionally, the Jews insisted that Moses left the oral Torah, and it had been inherited through leaders such like Joshua and elders verbally. However, Moses told about the book of law only, and Joshua also mentioned the book of law only. In Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 24 to 26, when Moses had finished writing down in a book the words of this law to the very end, Moses commanded the Levites who carried the Ark of Covenant of the Lord, saying, "Take this book of the law and put it beside the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God. Let it remain there as a witness against you." And in Joshua chapter 24, verses 25 to 26, so Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and made statutes and ordinances for them at Shechem. Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak in the sanctuary of the Lord. The book of law was found to the Israelite by the high priest Hilkiah, as described in 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 3, 8, 10 to 13. In the 18th year of King Josiah, the king sent Shaphan, son of Azariah, the secretary, to the house of the Lord. The high priest Hilkiah said to Shaphan, the secretary, "I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord." Shaphan, the secretary, informed the king, "The priest Hilkiah has given me a book." Shaphan then read it aloud to the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his clothes. Then the king commanded the priest Hilkiah, Ahikam son of Shaphan, Akbor son of Micaiah, Shaphan the secretary, and the king's servant Asaiah, saying, "Go, inquire of the Lord for me, for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that has been found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our ancestors did not obey the words of this book, according to all that is written concerning us." It was around BC 1444 when Moses completed the book of law, and around BC 1385 when Joshua completed the book of law in addition to that of Moses, and around BC 623 when the King Joshua was 18th year. It was found by the high priest Hilkiah. For more than 820 years, There has been no mention about the oral law in the Old Testament, which has been insisted by the Jews being verbally inherited, and especially according to the action of King Josiah. He didn't know anything about the oral law. We understand and accept the necessity of judicial precedent for fair justice. Furthermore, the Moses law is not so detailed in order to be applied to every single daily life. As an example, in the Moses law, keeping the Sabbath day holy was described in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your town. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but rested seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. Nothing was mentioned how many hours of work, which types of work, how far could it take a journey, how to visit neighbors, whether to cook or not, and so on. But there are lots of types of things happen in our life every day. Therefore, the Jews needed guidelines for all the details of work on the Sabbath day. They called it as a tradition of elders. In the oral law, there was this type of guidelines. The Mishnah, in its 6 main divisions, covers the whole range of Pentateuchal legislation. The first is Jerime, seeds. The second is Moed, set feasts. The third is Nasim, women. The fourth is Nejikin, damages. And fifth is Kodashim, hallowed things. And sixth is Rohorot's, cleanness. Each main division is also divided into several subdivisions. The Mishnah contains 63 subdivisions in total. Each subdivision is composed with several topics, and each topic is also composed with several tractates. As all illustration, the Sabbath is belonging to the second division, set feasts. The Sabbath subdivision contains 24 topics and 139 tractates in total. By these numbers, you could imagine how much detailed instruction the Mishnah gives as an oral Torah. Jesus Christ began his works publicly when Rabban Gamaliel the elder was the president of Sanhedrin. Not long after the last of 5 pairs, Hillel the elder and Shammai. Therefore, he must know this oral Torah. Jesus denied the authenticity of oral Torah as described in Mark chapter 7, verse 6 to 9. Isaiah prophesied rightly about you hypocrites. As it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precepts as doctrines. In my opinion, we don't need such 139 tractates for observing the Sabbath. From the day after the Sabbath, there is Sunday, and until the day before the Sabbath, there is Friday. We could do for 7 days volume of work. On the Sabbath, Saturday, we do nothing. Even cooking we could prepare on Friday. For the Sabbath, just only one day, we could eat cold meat. Only in case of emergency in life or death, which needs for doctor's care, we could do something for it. Do nothing will give us a true meaning of Sabbath. Therefore, you need as many spectators as you don't want to observe the law, which means the spectators shall give you legal excuses to dig various loopholes through the Moses law. That was why Jesus Christ criticized the Jews' tradition of elders, for such legally allowed sins could never be the subject to repentance and would be piled up among every single Jew. The Son of God should come as a Son of Man in the flesh and was crucified on the cross to bleed and die in order to be a sacrificial offering for sins of his people against the Lord under the oral law oppression, which started in the middle of BC 2nd century and have observed by the Jews until now. Therefore, the following are the title of this sermon. What is the faith which could be justified by the God?
El har